Hey, what is going on YouTube? It is Blue. We are back with another video. I do want to give a shout out to Luna RC who commented on one of my videos and basically suggested this video. She said, hey, I've been playing the game for a while, but I've recently been having some issues with my keybind. Can you make a video about that? I just want to say, yeah, thanks for that. I love and I appreciate if anybody has any content ideas, suggest them. If I feel comfortable, I'll go ahead and do that. Anything really to help out the community, again, if I feel comfortable. Now, this is something that I think you guys can get some benefit out of, and it may not be for everybody, but I do want to cover a few things. But basically, my idea that I go into setting up my keybinds and just setting up everything is how can I do it in the easiest way possible that makes sense to me. I think it's very important to have something very easy, okay? And just an example of this, let's say your raid is saying, hey, so-and-so, please run over here as quickly as possible, interrupt the mob, CC the mob, whatever. Doing things, pressing a lot of buttons, requiring you to press a lot of buttons, and also maybe stuff that you're not normally used to pressing. I think your setup should be so easy that even if they're buttons you're not pressing very often, that it's simple. And these are results that you can replicate very consistently. And I think that's what's probably going to help you be very successful in your WoW career. But then also as you're going to see, moving from one class to the next, if you kind of have an idea and say, hey, this button and this area in macros is my interrupts and my CCs. These are all things that a lot of specs have that even though you're not on your main, you can replicate. So I think these are the things that are going to help you be successful. So basically what I'm going to be talking about today is I'm going to be talking about keybinds. I'm going to be talking about macros, which are going to drastically reduce the amount of keybinds you actually need to press and making it more simple for you. We're going to be talking about a mouse, okay? This part of the video may not be for everybody, but I'm going to suggest a mouse to help you be, I think, very successful. And then also we're going to be talking about an add-on at the end that it's kind of similar to macros, but again, just kind of giving you one button to use a lot of different abilities and options. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope, this may not, again, not every point may be for you, but hopefully you can get value from this. But enough said, let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, we are going to get into keybinds and what I think in this section of what I think are the best keybinds. The thing you're going to notice is I actually do not have a lot of keyboard bound things, and the reason why is I value a lot, and I think it's very important a lot, to not actually have a ton of things on your keyboard. And that's going to sound really crazy, but whenever I created my setup that I've stuck to, I think it's very important that I'm always able to keep my fingers on W, A, S, D. These are my movement abilities. I want to be able to move forward, I want to be able to backwards, I want to be able to move side to side while pressing my abilities, okay? So you're going to notice the keys that I find are important are the ones that are near those buttons, and I would suggest that, okay? So I can always have my fingers on those units, or relatively close to those units so I can return to them very quickly, okay? So with that said, the buttons that I find are important are the ones that are close. I have Q, I have E, I have R, I have T, okay? T, for me, for my fingers, small or long, I don't know what they are comparative to the normal body part. T to me is as far as I'm going, okay? Now, and you're going to see these are all, I have them set up on my bars right next to each other, okay? So that thinking wise, I'm just like, okay, these are the ones on, as far as the keyboard, they're on the same line. Like you want to have the buttons simple, but then also when you're looking at the screen, have them, like you're like, okay, cool, I'm pressing E, and E is right next to R, which also relates to my keyboard, right? I think as far as having really good setups is, keybinds, that's really important, but also visualize to the keyboard the exact same thing. I think that's very, very important, and you'll notice I do that to help me be successful. T is as far as I go. Now what I will do is I will move my fingers down right next to the D key, and I will do F and G, okay? These are the only two buttons that I press, and for me, how I kind of think of them is I think of F of G. Those are the only two keys that I press. It's kind of a little bit weird, a little bit off. Those are always my big abilities, okay? These are always my major cooldowns. And that's kind of how I think of that. The Q, E, R, T, these are very basic abilities to me. And the F, G are the major cooldowns, which generally classes have, 2, maybe 3, all right? Now, if we keep scrolling over, you're going to see, and this works really great for me as a Feral Druid player, I've also kind of incorporated this into other characters that I play, but a very easy button to do is mouse wheel up, mouse wheel down. Okay, for Feral Druid, it's really, really simple because as far as single target goes, there's only 2 combo point spenders, which is mouse wheel up, mouse wheel down. All right, I do really like to incorporate those. My mouse, which we'll go into later, it does have the ability to scroll infinitely, but if I click that, it's something that grabs it, so you can do just one, right? But since this is on combo point spenders, I can only do one at a time really anyways. So I really like to do that combo, or mouse wheel up, mouse wheel down. All right, now let's talk also about my numbers, right? I do have certain abilities on my numbers of my keyboard, but I actually do not prefer to press them. I know a lot of people, sometimes they go from like 1 to 7. 7 is really far for me. I can't actually put my finger like on 7 without like moving every single one of my fingers away from W, A, S, D, and I do not want that. So I actually prefer 1 through 4, all right? Now 4 is, and actually basically I do 1 and 2, okay? And then sometimes I've done this is I'll actually even just put this, which is my major ability, I'll actually keybind this to 3 and 4. Okay, just in case I'm like not really super comfortable with it. I know it's kind of top and a stretch. I may press 3, I may press 4, but luckily I don't need 3 and 4 together, right? And that's kind of my thinking. So that actually is quite a lot of abilities right there with those presses. Now what I want to go ahead and do is I'm actually going to go a little bit out of order, but I want to talk about the mouse. All right, this video is not sponsored. My wife may have an affiliate link. If she does, I'll leave a link below. So use that. We probably don't have an affiliate link anyways, but I'll still leave a link below. I am a huge fan of Logitech specific mouse G604, okay? I just recently bought one of these mouses again. I don't know, I think I may have bought it someplace in a different country, because instead of mouse, it says mas. And it was a lot cheaper than this, but usually these mouses are expensive. I will say these mouses specifically, they are very good mouses. They last me around 3 to 5 years, okay? And when I say they last me 3 to 5 years, this is my mouse. This is the mouse I had prior, and this is the mouse I had prior to that. They're all the same mouse, and they all work really well. Okay, so this is like within a 15-year time period. I don't know why I still have the mouses, but they're still good. The only thing that I will say that is a bummer about these mouses is during that 3 to 5 years, the part that fails on this mouse is actually the click hold down function, okay? Now this is not something that will impact you on your game. So basically it means that mouse that I bought like 12 years ago or whatever, I can still use this in the game, but as somebody that plays the game and then I have side monitors, basically what fails is the hold down function, okay? So if I wanted to copy and paste this, that is the part that fails. And on my other 2 mouses, my older mouses, what happens if I click on this, and let's say I try to highlight this whole thing, it will fail, and I will be like scrolling and try to highlight this whole thing, and somewhere in between it will fail and it will stop. And it's like, oh crap, the click down portion of this doesn't work. But everything else on my very old mouses still functions. So unfortunately, that is an issue with this mouse that honestly doesn't even relate to the game. It's more of like off screen, or if I'm trying to, prepare some content or whatever and I need to copy and paste something, it doesn't work. As far as copying and paste in the game, I never do that. The game is just very click based, right? Now the reason that I love this mouse is you're going to see here, there are 6 buttons on the side, okay? This gives me 6 buttons that I can press that I don't have to move my fingers from WSD, right? And what's really nice, I think, because I've seen some mouses with hella amount of keybinds on the side potential, it's too much for me. For me, it's very simple, because what I do, let's see if I can hold that. What I do is I think these bottom 3, and I basically, how I set my thing up is these bottom 3 are right here, and I keep them together, and then I put one ability in between those, and then I do my top 3. So for me, it's easily identifiable. If I forget like which buttons are which, I'm like, okay, these 3 are my bottom, these 3 are my top. And what this ability is right here, and this ability is right here, for me, is this plus and minus, okay? Now, normally what this plus and minus will do is it will increase the speed of your mouse, okay? Now, the really cool thing about Logitech and how it's set up, and again, this is not sponsored at all. It's actually, I don't know if it's a cool thing or not, but unfortunately, every time you open up your game, what you do is you'll open up your mouse, and you see here, I have my mouse set up to specific things that I never press, okay? So let's see right here. I want to see view 2. Okay? These are buttons that I never press. All right? So that's basically how you set this up, is when you first buy your mouse, you need to buy it to buttons that you never press. And in game, when I press this button, it thinks that I'm pressing something else, right? So that's basically how I do it. So unfortunately, it is a little bit kind of a bummer. Every time you open up World of Warcraft, you do need to open up this Logitech-based thing. Oh, I have a couple WoWs open up at once. I apologize about that. Okay, so you can see that one is my middle one. And that one is tied to that. Okay, so this is very great. So as far as keybinds, this is my plus, this is my minus, these are my bottom ones, and these are my top 3. Right on the side, okay? And this also, I didn't talk about this, but this is actually a keybind on the mouse as well, which is just this mouse scrolly has the ability to click in. Okay, to click in, which apparently also clicks. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, and that's my lunge ability. So you can see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 abilities that are on my keyboard, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 abilities just on this one mouse. Okay, and that's why I really like this mouse. It's got a lot. And the really awesome thing about this mouse is, again, I can press these abilities really consistently and reliably without moving my fingers. Okay, now let's go on to another portion of this video, and you're like, damn, that's actually a lot of keybinds. You got so many on your mouse, so many on your keyboard. This is a lot. But again, you may also find the need to have more abilities. Okay, so we are going to be talking about macros now, which basically says, hey, I am to the point where I feel comfortable about all of my buttons that I press. I do not want to increase the amount of buttons that I press, but I'm getting to the point where it's just like, I need more buttons, right? And that does happen. Specific specs in general have even more, I've noticed. And what you do is, it's a very good way of grouping things, okay? So you need to find a way that makes sense to group things. For example, I don't even need Stampeding Roar on my bars. I just have it there, okay? I have it for 2 separate abilities, but I don't. Now the reason what macros do is macros can tie abilities together by saying, hey, I press this button to increase my speed. But if I press this button again, modified by saying, hey, now I'm going to press Shift and the button, now I can do something else. And you see, it's basically two abilities that are speed together. You know, one is a personal speed, and then if I press Shift, it gives me a second ability or second option to press the very same button that's an overall AoE ability. And basically how you would set that up on your bars to look nice and neat. Again, I find myself with an extra button, so I just put them instead of having that cap. But let's say for the speed, I wanted to kind of see it. You can either press Shift to kind of get an idea of that, you know, secondary item that's not really showing you, or you can just put it right below that. All right. So I would suggest having your bars kind of set up like I do, and then having an extra smaller bar up top, an extra smaller bar on bottom. And basically, how you can make this macro is you, I'll just go ahead and put this in the comments below, but you're going to see the sequence. At the very end of the sequence on your ability, that's where you put in the ability that you want to show, your main ability. So for this instance, you have this huge sequence that I can't expand, unfortunately. At the end, it's going to say reset equals 10 and then skull bash. Okay, so this is my interrupt as a feral druid. But then also what you're going to notice is I have two other abilities on there, okay? And how I would set those up to view, and just so you're aware, I do not ever use Maim, but I do have this macro set up. Okay? So this is basically how I would have this set up. So my very first ability is Skull Bash, okay? Now my second ability, which says, hey, this is a modifier that when says press Shift and then that same button, now it will do Mighty Bash. Now this is something as a PvE player, yeah, I do use. But then if I was doing PvP content, I can press that very same button but modify it with Control, and now it will press Maim. For me, that's not going to happen because I'm not even talented into Maim. But if I was playing PvP content, I can be like, oh wow, this one ability that I have can do 3 separate things depending on if I hold down Shift, or if I hold down Control, or if I hold down nothing. Now the very important reason why I suggest a mouse is you're going to notice, other than T, I do not use any type of modifiers, Shift modifiers or Control modifiers, for anything on my keyboard, right? It's too difficult to press Shift and then a specific button. What that will end up doing is it will get my fingers off of the abilities, the WASD, the movement abilities that I find really important. So that's why I find it really important and successful to have a mouse with a lot of buttons, because all of my Shift and macro modifiers are tied to buttons, okay? So that says, hey, I want to use an ability. I can press Shift while still moving. I'm pressing Shift right now, or I'm pressing Control right now, while still moving my character. And then I can just press one of the mouse buttons, right? Right there. So it's very easy for me. This is going to help me do very difficult things and replicate them by being, and also being dependable, right? And not clicking. So for instance, another really good one, and this is something that I should probably have down here, is my defensives. A lot of specs have not only 1 defensive or 2 defensive abilities, right? So that's what I have here. This is my defensive button. I can go ahead and press that one. Now if I hold down Shift, it's going to show you the cooldown of my survival instincts. And then I can press that. I can just hold it down and Shift, survival instincts. And now I can see the timer of both by having them both. So that is a very, very important thing to do. And basically your bars will end up kind of looking like this. So macros are really, really good. It's going to give you the capability of having a lot of spells in here, but still pressing the amount that you feel necessary. And then again, this is the one that really is going to help you be successful when you move over to another spec or another class. Let's say I'm playing Windwalker. You know, I'm like, okay, cool. I have my interrupt. I have my CC, right? So I'll put that down. And then I have my interrupt. And then I also have CC abilities, which are just going to go down here. Ring of Peace. Or maybe I want to, instead of Typhoon, I'll just do my AoE kick. you know, you're going to start realizing, oh, okay, these are the buttons right here. You have Earth, Wind, and Fire, which is either going to be on my F or G key. It's just going to replace the ones I have there. So hopefully you guys found that. Let's go ahead and get into an add-on that I find very good. It's very similar to basically macros. You press one ability and it kind of lets you do a lot of different things. Let me figure out what it's called Opie. Okay. Now I only have Opie as a feral druid. I have two Opie buttons. Okay, so Z is going to be my movements or my shifters. Okay. So it's going to help me be successful. So now I can bind basically I only have bound 4 because I don't really care about some of these other ones, but I can bind my abilities to one button, and then basically, depending on where my mouse is, you know, it's going to change what I do. This is really good. So I do find this very important. You can even make your Opie setup that even just by pressing Z, it will just make you automatically go into an ability. So like for instance, I had it set up to go into feral form, right? So all I'd have to do is press Z and I would shift in and out of feral form just by pressing Z. Now what I found is I didn't really like that because sometimes I would find myself being in a dungeon or whatever, just teleporting, or, you know, for whatever reason you'd find yourself being in human form. And let's say I wanted to go from human form to travel form. By having that actively pressing Z go to cat form, I'd have to go to cat form and then travel form, so I found myself not liking that. I also have V, a button that I don't care, a non-combatant button that is a little bit further away from the WASD keys that I find important. But this is something that I'm just going to put in, and I also need to put in my Hearthstone here. So these can be Hearthstones, you know, hearthing abilities. These can also be your professions. I've done that at a time. You can even bind it to another button where you just have your prep tools, your food, your flask, your augments, things like that. That's really, really nice. So that way you don't need all these buttons down here of like your food flask and things like that. So it is a very useful add-on. I do not find it very good though to kind of have it set up as far as like combatant things. I don't think it's really good to say like during combat to press a button and do this maneuver. Because I have enough keybinds, I have enough macros to be successful, and I just use it kind of for out of combat things. Although shifting form is something you do combat, but that's it. I hope you guys found the video enjoyable. I hope you found some tips that you can incorporate. But either way, I really appreciate the views. I really appreciate you guys so much. And thanks for suggesting this comment. Hopefully you find it to be to your liking. But that's it, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.